Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. On this episode, we'll be discussing Ambiguous endings, the New Mutants, Chadwick Boseman's passing, and then we're diving into Tenet. But we promise to warn you before we'll discuss any spoilers. I promise. Now let's see where this train takes us. Get that? That's an Inception joke. What? My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today are my fellow host, John Davenport.
Hey, Aaron. How you doing today?
Feels like we've been a while since we've all gotten together. Amanda Sink.
Hello. It has not been as long for you and I, Aaron.
That's true. We came
'Cause we're not slackers.
with it last week, and John was. So what were you doing?
Too busy for us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
Fandom. Did you even watch it? Oh yeah, you did, because you were all like, "This is
I did
great.
watch
This is the
Fandom.
most amazing thing ever." Well, too bad we're not talking about it now. It's over. Bye.
Yeah. You guys recorded on a Monday night. I'm not available Monday night, so
We could have recorded on a Tuesday. We offered it.
I don't remember there being an offer.
We didn't offer that. What are you talking
We
about?
asked if he wanted to do it, and then we said no. So then we're like, well, screw it. We'll just do it on a Monday then.
I don't know if I actually said no, but
No, you just didn't respond.
I think I did. I just didn't
You
respond.
ghosted us.
I was in a place. That's all I got to say about that.
That was more important. And that's probably true.
I was in a place. That just feels weird. All
Like
right,
a murder happened?
You know what? We're gonna do our format a bit different this episode. What? A murder? What?
He was in a place. He wouldn't describe the place. Like a murder happened.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give away my location of the body.
Oh. Okay.
Or what he
We're
was
playing
doing.
Clue, and you're over there playing checkers.
I think so. Where's the candlestick? And I assume you're in the billiard room. That's where everybody goes, I guess. Well, you know what? We're doing our format a little bit different, and we're going to do reviews very last so we can review Tenet spoiler free, and then we'll segue into a mini spoiler cast with plenty of warning. So we'll let you know, because once we get there, John has to leave. He doesn't want to be part of that. So just hang tight, because we're going to talk about what the hell happened in that movie that we can't really talk about during the normal show. So heads up.
Hey, are we going to talk about Bill and Ted at all?
Yes, we'll mention Bill and Ted.
Okay.
For you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
It's the only thing he's watched, Aaron. Come on.
most
I
excellent.
watched New Mutants.
Yeah, he
I
went.
actually
you
went to the
did?
theater for that. I risked life and limb and went to the theater in Florida for that.
Was it worth it?
It is a lot
No.
different in Florida. Why?
Okay.
Well, I mean, the movie was fine. But risking my life for that movie, I don't know.
Yeah. They can't even spell the creator's name right, and here you are risking limb for it.
Man, how sad is that?
I think it's kind of awesome. For people that don't know, Bob McLeod, that's right? I said
Well, you can't pronounce
I think
it. They
it's
can't
McLeod.
spell it,
okay,
so
McLeod,
it doesn't matter.
whatever it is. I'm not responsible for making sure his credit is correct. They misspelled his name in the credits for New Mutants, and he blasted them on Twitter, and then they were upset. Like, I think the director took himself off Instagram and all these other things. I'm like, I mean, you guys, somebody had one job. You literally had one job.
In a time where people don't have a lot of jobs, this guy still had a job and had 3 years to do it right.
Right.
That's
Right.
important.
It's not like it just came out like we just finished this bad boy. Oh, we had to rush it through production.
And I feel bad because he's the dude who made it, so he deserves extra credit. It's not like some random person.
It was like him,
who's-
Rob Liefeld, yeah.
He doesn't deserve extra credit. He deserves the correct credit. God.
Fair enough.
I couldn't believe it. I thought that was so funny. So funny. It's not an awful movie, by the way. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but that was...
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We're going to get there.
Hey, heads up, guys. If you're thinking about dropping that $30 for Mulan, by the time you hear that, it's going to be hitting Disney Plus with a $30 bonus, and then you can watch this movie. Well, a reliable leak sprang saying that the film will be free to Disney Plus subscribers before Christmas. So if you're excited, but you can wait, and you don't really want to spend that money, I think it warrants a heads up.
That's me.
There you go.
For reference, I'm that friend.
Heads up.
You're the friend that told us or
That does
spoiled it?
not. No, that I'm the friend who does not want to spend $30 and is willing to wait.
Cool. I think we're all that friend, Amanda. I mean,
Yeah. I'll spend 20. I won't spend 30. I have my limits.
like if it was going to be in the theater, we probably would have an episode during Labor Day
Yep.
week. But now, not so much. Sorry. Taking that break. What?
yeah, you're going to be swimming in a pool that week.
Do, 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 do.
And also, a movie we reviewed called Faith Based is releasing on October 9th, and I just think it deserves a shout out because it's actually a pretty good movie.
That's in October. We'll still be here in October,
It's
right?
because he wants his extra credit because they put his quote in the trailer. That's what this is about.
Oh.
And he needed one of us to mention it. You're welcome.
Man,
We could have waited till October to mention it. Like, that's when the movie matters.
Trailer's out now, bitch.
Is it now? Oh, so when you get a chance,
yeah.
why don't you jump on the YouTubes, search for that faith-based trailer. You'll see a certain name in that trailer.
It does make the movie seem a little better to me. I mean, I would assume to everybody listening. I would assume, but no.
It's a pretty good quote. I'll at least give him that.
Half the stars don't know who Aaron is,
Hey!
but at least his
Hey,
quote is in the trailer.
Luke Barnett is he's supposed to come on the show. Well, he said he was going to before. I hope he still is now. But he's supposed to come on the show and talk about the movie once we get there. But it's a good film. I enjoyed it.
Oh, well, that's sweet of him.
Well, you know what? We have something a little heavier to talk about, but you know what? We're not going to. I'm a big fan of when people pass, try to find the bright spots. Don't just dwell on the sadness. You know what I mean? And Chadwick Boseman passed away, which I think took everybody by surprise. He had colon cancer for 4 years. He was diagnosed in 2016, apparently. So this whole time, he's been dealing with colon cancer with, starting in Civil War through all the Avengers movies, Black Panther, 21 Bridges, all the other stuff that he's been doing while battling cancer. So if you ever, a lot of people are calling him a hero in real life, and I would say that's pretty heroic. That's pretty impressive. But this seems to be one of the hardest celebrity deaths, I think, in some time. Like, so many people are being affected by it, and it crosses races and sexuality, like just everything. Everybody seems to be on board with this, as it's the devastating passing. So why do you feel Chadwick Boseman's passing has impacted so many and brought some people together?
Well, it's what I think his most iconic character at this point is a character that brings a lot of people together. And it's something that transcends race in a way that gives you the ability of saying it doesn't matter who you are or where you came from. This is something we can equally appreciate, and that's Black Panther. So that was a great way for him to really transcend the race and bring a lot of people together.
I mean, I feel like it would be ill of us to not mention what he's done, though, for his community, for the people that look up to him, the Black community that didn't have an icon in this universe to this capacity, a superhero. But he's also just such an incredibly talented actor and seemed like such a genuinely nice guy. And when you look back now and you see all of this time where he was working and dealing with his battle with cancer while he was going to, children's hospitals and making their days better while he was dealing with cancer, or he was making, in just so many different ways, he was trying to make other people's days brighter in his own way while he was dealing with his own battle. And that to me is just, that's another level that you don't, I think about if I were in that situation, I can't imagine that I would have the energy or the passion and love to be able to still care to that capacity for other people and just go out and do all of these things. And he's being some badass action star and just personal hero to people. So there's a lot of reasons. And if you watch the thank yous that people have given to him, even just when the films came out, it's incredible to see how much he's meant to people.
And what I found very just beautiful was, Black Panther's a very regal character. And it seems like Chadwick Boseman was a very regal man. Like, he's just a very genuine soul by many people's accounts. I haven't seen a negative word about him, before this happened.
I was going to say, now would be a really bad time to say anything bad.
Well, there's always somebody. But I haven't,
That's true.
And only at the time he's had a career. And it's amazing to me how one actor, I was really thinking about this. One actor has so embodied so many different times in history of Black culture. You know, with Jackie Robinson and James Brown and Marshall Thurgood and then Black Panther as well. You know, and I had this conversation with somebody who's like, I don't understand. Like, Black Panther is just a superhero. I'm like, man, you know that there aren't many Black superheroes. There aren't many movies like this for Black people. There just aren't. You know, you go look at every superhero movie aside from Blade, which has a white cast except for Wesley Snipes. You don't have any franchises where it's predominantly Black. And you really don't for Hispanic or Asians too, like big budget projects like this. And this really brought a culture to the forefront and brought Black people their hero and brought a symbol for many about just equality and genuine heartfelt emotion. And it was all led by this guy. Like he wore that on his back. And I was thinking about like how difficult that has to be, even though it's just, you think it's just a fictional character, but that's a lot of weight for one guy to have to carry. And it never seemed in anything I ever saw of him to be a weight for him. You know what I mean? It seemed like, I got this. I can handle it. And he handled it with grace at every moment. And his head never got too big, never got full of him. Like, he just seems like a genuinely wonderful man.
I really loved how his head stayed on, right? Like, there was a story I was listening to this morning on NPR about how he got to thank Denzel Washington, because Denzel Washington happened to sponsor his ability to go to school and to become an actor. And at the premiere of Black Panther, Denzel shows up and Chadwick's like, I can't believe you're here. That's great. And he's like, you know, you sponsored my ability to go to school. And Denzel's like, I know, I'm here for the check.
Yeah, it was his money back. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, John, I don't know if you ever saw it. You were talking about Denzel Washington, the AFI tribute he did last year, where you could see Chadwick was noticeaway thin, but I think a lot of people just thought he was probably getting ready for a part or something along those lines. Mm-hmm. And then he actually just did a dedication of the award to Denzel Washington and talked about that, and also talked about how Denzel has inspired so many people, including his entire cast, and there'd be no Black Panther without Denzel. Like, it was a very beautiful speech that he gave.
No, I heard that speech as well as that story about it this morning. So yeah, it was all beautiful, and it takes a real hero to be able to say, listen, this is all great and everything, but this is why I'm here, or this is how I got here, and that needs to be acknowledged just as well as everything else does.
Yeah, and all those people that were mocking him because he's too thin on Instagram last year, I bet you feel really, really bad right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that I as much as I there is a part of me that I look at that stuff and I go, whoa, what's going on there? And it's I never really mock somebody for it, but I always wonder, it's either for a role or something else is going on, and I hope they're going to end up being okay. And I do feel bad for those people who decide to take a negative route, because this is just one of those lessons that it's a hard learned one, where they have to just appreciate everyone's life for whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, you never know. You never know what's going on with somebody. So here's the hard question. I know, some people will take offense to this, but it's been several days. I don't know what the proper time frame is to even discuss it, but people are discussing it all over the place. I think it's a fair question to ask. As far as Black Panther, the series goes, like, where do you guys feel like the succession plan should be?
Well, I can tell you not less than 24 hours like Screen Rant. That is not the proper time frame.
They weren't even like 3 hours and they're running a crappy article. But like, man, wait. Like, you guys just had this ready to go? What the hell?
They pulled it down, and I was a little disappointed that the writer didn't. He apologized for it and everything, but he kind of also, I felt like defended it a little bit. That's my opinion. But anyway, definitely not that quick. I think you need to give the families enough time to grieve and get through things. Like, I understand having, on the business end, on the back end, they have to obviously start considering and, paying their respects, how they're going to handle that, and what the future of that franchise and that role and the movies and all that will look like. That's normal. For the public perspective, I think you need to, give it some time, man. Like, I genuinely feel like it should be weeks, months. I mean, that's a pretty grueling thing to go through, and understandable that the family has had time to sit with it, but that still doesn't take away the ache from it. And for someone who represented such an iconic role, not only just for the character, but also for, you know, the community, the Black community, as a leader, as an icon, as a hero, that to me, you need to take some serious time and figure that out on the back end and not
just
talk
feels
about
like
it publicly.
the longest way to get to an answer. That's
how I speak, though.
Yeah, it wasn't even like to the question. You're just like lecturing everybody about don't talk about it too soon. All right, we got that, but we're talking about it right now. So what,
yeah, I'm sitting here like what's happening right now?
What's the succession
how did we get
plan
here?
I gave you months.
No. Who should take the mantle?
I'm saying we should be waiting months before we talk about this. That's my stance.
Okay, John, what do you got?
I saw somebody float this idea, and I really like the idea, is to have Shuri take the mantle from here. You know, have it something where Black Panther is still a presence in the next few movies whenever they can be. Like, but as the story progresses through the new movies that are coming, you lessen and lessen his visibility and start bringing Shuri to the front, and then that way you can build up an explanation as to how she begins to show up as the Black Panther versus anybody else.
Well, I think you could explain it pretty quick. I mean, if you really wanted to. I mean, just address it honestly. And yeah, I would go with Shuri. Letitia Wright is definitely ready for something like that. I know she probably doesn't feel ready right now, but Lupita's not Nakia. She could do it too. I mean, if they need to fill it, either one of them would be great.
Do you guys have a preference on how they actually handle the character, though?
Oh, that's
because a lot of times the escape
part
is a death, and it's like honorary, and then this person rises up and takes over or something like that.
Well,
or if you have some footage, you could have them passing it on, which I don't think we have. So.
Here's the beauty. Okay, here's the beauty of that is that in the Black Panther world, you have the afterlife, right? You have the afterlife. So I don't know if they can assemble footage or something where you could have Shuri actually talk to the character of Black Panther, of T'Challa, in that, you know, the after, I don't know, I can't remember what they called it, you know, where his dad was and everything else, and he talked to, like, the same kind of thing. I think you could do something like that and pass the torch that way. And it would be a way that, even though he might have passed in a series, it doesn't feel like he, you know, they do it respectfully, I think.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
I don't know what your future is, but if you're willing to take the harder way, the more complicated one, the one with more failures at first than successes, the one that has ultimately proven to have more meaning, more victory, more glory, then you will not regret it. Now, this is your time.
Well, our hearts go out to Chadwick's family. We're going to move on to some other stuff that we have to talk about. Patreon. Our show is independently funded, therefore all of the expenses are from our own pockets, and Patreon helps fans support the favorite podcast. If you'd like to sign up, you get immediate access to whatever content is in the tier that you sign up for. Just go to patreon.com/thehollywoodoutsider. There's a lot of bonus episodes. We do Bad Movie Night, that's coming back. We do a separate episode where we talk about a bunch of different things, stuff we wouldn't talk about on a normal show. You can hear Amanda lecture you on other episodes. You could hear that. You know, there's all kinds of things that...
I feel like you actually get less lecture from me on those episodes.
No, you don't.
Oh, you get more of John being mean. You get that.
You do get a lot more of that.
John gets really, really mean for whatever reason. So that you can find that.
That's his unfiltered.
Patreon.com/thehollywoodoutsider. You can find that out. All right, we got some upcoming releases real quick. What's coming out, guys?
On September 4th, coming to Netflix, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, is a psychological horror film written, directed, and produced by Charlie Kaufman. It's based on the novel of the same name by Ian Reid. Despite second thoughts about their relationship, a young woman takes a road trip with her new boyfriend to his family farm. Trapped at the farm during a snowstorm with Jake's mother and father, the young woman begins to question the nature of everything she knew or understood about her boyfriend, herself, and the world.
Can I just point out... Hang on. Is he from Boston? Because you're like, Charlie Kaufman. Like, who's that?
Did I say it like that?
Yeah, Charlie Kaufman. He parks the car and then he goes to the bar right next to the yacht.
I'm trying to do my best Affleck impression.
Nice. All right, so following that, on September 4th, we also have The Owners. A group of friends think they find an easy score at an empty house with a safe full of cash. But when the owners, an elderly couple, come home early, the tables are suddenly turned. This is written and directed by Julius Berg and stars Maisie Williams, Sylvester McCoy, Rita Tungsten. That sounds right. I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, you know what's funny about that? Is you're talking about that movie. One, Maisie Williams is actually, pretty much her age. Versus the New Mutants, which came out last week, and she looks about 5 years younger.
Yeah.
2, when I was writing the review for the New Mutants, which you can find at thehollywoodoutsiders.com, I misspelled I spelled it Maze Williams for some reason. And I went back and corrected that, just like they didn't do in the New Mutants. That's all.
Well, then on September 11th, we have I Am Woman. Helen Reddy's popular song, I Am Woman, becomes an anthem for the women's movement in the 1970s. This comes from Unjune Moon as the director, and it stars Evan Peters and Tilda Cobham Hervey. Cobham?
Wow, you guys are losing people
excellent.
Left and right.
Or maybe we're just getting more people. I don't know if you noticed, but this country has a lot of dumb people in it.
That's true. And I'm kind of disappointed they didn't call it I Am Broad or I Am Dame. Something a little catchier.
Yeah.
I was thinking the wrong song. At first I thought it was I'm Every Woman. And then I was like, wait a second, that is not right.
Great. I'm glad we got to pay Whitney Houston's family.
I am woman. I have this little body. I have tiny arms, little brain,
Oh my goodness.
Whoa, why do you sound like a T-Rex? Why are you describing one?
I'm just talking about women, tiny arms.
Oh, that's John at thehollywoodoutsiders.com.
No,
that's right. It's John at the
give his personal email for that one. He doesn't check his Hollywood Outsider one.
I do now.
You better issue the apology now. I'm just letting you know. Go.
Oh yeah, he wants those screeners, so he's like, I gotta check my email now. What?
Right, I know.
Let's go to our topic this week. All right, from the outside in topic, which is a topic in movie or television that we talk about every single week. It's ambiguous endings. Now, we've got two things. One, we're going to pose a little question and just have a little discussion. But then we each picked two movies with very ambiguous endings where we're going to discuss what those endings are. And if you go like, don't spoil it, all these things are old. So if you haven't seen them, it's your fault. And we're just going to save you time because you're obviously not going to watch them anyway.
Right.
Okay. So here's the discussion point. I want to know, do you guys actually enjoy ambiguous endings or do you actually need closure in your movies?
Yeah, sometimes I have to say I love the ambiguous one ending more than a movie that has closure to it, just because it's something that sticks with me. Isn't it like it's like a great meal that sticks to your ribs after you eat it, and you're just you're still like feeling it and tasting it and then mulling it over in your mind.
Oh, that sounds like heartburn.
I say you call it tomato, I call it tomato.
Tomato gives me heartburn. So yeah, and tomato. Actually, both of them do. Thanks for bringing it up.
I guess with heartburn, it's constantly coming up, isn't it?
Oh, that was actually a good joke. I'm kind of proud of you.
Wow, that was the biggest pity I've ever heard. Like, oh, that was really good. What a good boy. It's like she patted your head. Oh, that's what you get for being mean.
What?
Nothing. Amanda,
all the time.
Do you like ambiguous endings?
I don't mind using my imagination as long as it's done right, because there is a right and a wrong way to do this. And if it leaves the viewers contemplating because there's enough evidence to support both sides and there's a reason for maybe ending it that way, cool. If you just are trying to be really cool and you suck at writing these clever endings and it just turns out mostly to be more like a cliffhanger, I do not support. But the ones we're talking about today are pretty cleverly done. So,
yeah, like Jessica Farrell, I think in the Facebook group, she mentioned Alita Battle Angel, and they do have kind of that's more of a cliffhanger because you could tell they were banking on we're going to make a series out of this, and I hate when that happens. I think that's a horrible idea to do movies like that. It's not like Empire Strikes Back where you're pretty sure it's going to do well enough to make that third movie so you can end this. This is the first movie you're hoping in a series and you're going to leave it open-ended? where you have to kind of assume what's going to happen next if it's not a big hit. I just am not a fan of that. I don't like that. As long as you get some idea, like I feel like if the picture is painted enough that you can make some assumption of what's going to happen, even if it's like a this or that kind of assumption, it's either going to go this way or that way, that you can fill in the blanks, and it's done really, very smartly. I'm a fan of that. But when you have something that's just where it becomes just a cliffhanger, no, they don't like that unless it's a definite series that we're definitely getting more movies of. Like Fast and Furious. You could cliffhanger the hell out of those. I mean, we're coming back.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good example of one that's not so terrible. But it also doesn't matter because we're not there for the story. We're not there for the Fast and Furious movies.
Shut your mouth. I'm there for the story. I'm waiting for there to be one. Like, there's going to be one eventually. I feel it in my bones. Eventually, we will get a story.
Maybe.
And I'm just we're all going to sit back and go, what the hell just happened?
It's a movie?
Christopher Nolan wrote this? I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, I wouldn't say any of the Fast and Furious movies had an ambiguous ending to it.
Well, sure they did. The one where Jason Statham kills Han, spoiler. That
was a stinger.
Yeah, it was, but it was kind of an ambiguous ending, like, oh crap, what's going to happen now? We got to come back for the next one.
Also, Letty dying and not dying.
Well,
she actually died in one of the movies, and they brought her back at the end of another one. All right, so that's an ambiguous ending.
I mean, we knew she was dead, and then she wasn't. So she wasn't. I don't even know. Really, why are we talking about this series? It's not like they put tut much work into it.
This is not critical to the topic.
We literally have put more thought. We have literally put more thought into this series than they ever have right now.
Right. But that's my point. That's where I was going to go with this. Thank you for just cutting right to the point.
I'm here for you. So you don't always have to have closure.
No, it's not necessary. Closure is something that it depends on the story itself. And I actually, when it comes to to a movie like Alita Battle Angel, I feel a level of closure with that movie.
Me too.
That says, hey, this is the story we're going to tell. Here's a hint to what might come. Maybe we don't know, but here's a hint, and that's what the very end of that movie is. But as far as the story itself, it had a beginning, it had a middle, and it had an end. And it sure could it move on, yeah. But the thing about a nice ambiguous ending is that you can just twist it in your head in so many different directions that you forget where you started, you don't know where you went, and all of a sudden you just became part of that story that this person wrote for you and put on screen for you, and that's, I think, a beautiful thing.
Have you guys ever been at one where it was like an ambiguous ending? And I'm sure the big ones that people talk about we're going to talk about them in a minute, but Inception, The Thing, stuff like that, where you watched it and at the end you were just angry?
Not at the good ones. Not the ones you're mentioning. I get where I start to get upset is when it comes to an ending that is trying to be more clever than it really is. And I am sorry, I don't have a great example of it because I didn't know we were talking about the shitty ones too. But the ones that have not put actual thought into two genuinely plausible endings with support for them, and they just try to whip something together almost as if it's a twist, but it's dude, that's not a twist because there's no real rhyme or reason for why it would end any differently than what we're anticipating.
I'll give you one. You ready?
Okay.
And Mandy, you got a minor in film, so I'm pretty sure you've seen this one. John, I think you've seen this movie. I don't know, but if you go Google ambiguous endings, this movie's going to pop up in every article you find. And I don't like the movie at all. And I hate the ending. Ready? 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Oh yeah.
That is the most ambiguous ending ever, and it's one of the best endings ever. No, it's not. It's awful. I just don't like it. I don't like anything about it. I don't think it's that as nearly as smart as Stanley Kubrick obviously thought it was. And the movie itself, other than the opening, I think the opening is fantastic, where you kind of, establish primal culture. It's just, man, boring.
That's actually a fairly controversial film in general somehow, because, and I think it really comes down to if Kubrick is your guy or not. And
that's fair.
I'm very hit or miss with him anyway, and I know you don't tend to be his biggest fan in a lot of cases when it comes to
no. See, if it's hit or or miss, I'm the guy at the target range that just shoots behind him. Like, I am a complete miss with Kubrick. I just do not like him.
You're just aiming for him the entire time and not the target?
Yeah. Not
I missed him again. Damn it.
Yeah, not a fan.
He's going to make another movie if I don't hit this. Sorry,
No.
Can't help it. Maybe we shouldn't do gun jokes.
Well, now you made it uncomfortable. All right, so the other thing that I thought of is, I mean, ambiguous endings in, I was wondering about like TV shows too. Because we, Lost always comes up and that sort of thing. But we talk about it in movies, like if you do it really well, it's okay. But do you like it when it's a TV show and they do it? Because, I mean, you spend years with that. Or do you feel like that's
Angel
not fair?
did it and I liked it.
So once again, if it's done well.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's done well, it works. But if it's one of these things where it's an abrupt ending because either A, they got canceled, or B, the show just went on so long, where else they're going to go with it, it's hard to really gauge it. But Quantum Leap did it very well. Angel did it very well.
Breaking Bad.
Well,
that wasn't very ambiguous. That was pretty...
I was going to say, that's not very ambiguous.
You don't know what happens after.
Oh, I know exactly what happens after. A,
well, because you watched the movie.
There was a movie. B, one character, you saw what happened right then. So I'm going to say who, because I'm sure there's one person that hasn't seen it, and saying that will destroy their life. So I'll pass. I'll refrain.
Driving the car off the road. Damn it!
And what happened?
They did it to me again!
TV shows require, I think, more thought in terms of trying to create an ambiguous ending, because for you to not wrap it up, you have to know your viewers well enough to make sure that all of the questions that they want answered are answered, but leave them with contemplating the future of these characters or the current state. And I always feel like it's always easier to leave them contemplating the future state in terms of writing. It is so much harder to leave people unfrustratingly uncertain of their current state. And my example for that goes back to Inception.
Okay. Well, you know what? That's perfect example. Let's take it away. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our two movies. We each have two movies. We'll each do one, and then we'll each do another one. So Amanda, you start us off.
So Inception, I'm not going to recap the whole film, but what you need to know is that when Cobb, who's Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he finally, towards the end, he somehow gets reunited with everything that he wants. And we see him meeting his father-in-law, played by Michael Caine. We see him hugging his children. Their faces turn, which was a huge thing in the film, is that his memory did not allow him to see the faces of his children. He wished that before he left, he would have yelled and had them turn around. He happens to be in the same house that he was in prior to all of this nonsense happening. And one of the things that happens at the very end is that he takes the totem, which, if you remember, the totem is what tells him, or him and his ex Mal had determined, your totem is the only thing you know, the weight, the feel, everything of it. So it is a way for you to determine if you are in reality or if you're in a dream state. And we find out later in the film that the totem he uses was actually Mal's. So he spins this totem when he gets back with his family because he's thinking, is this real? This can't be real. Am I really here? He doesn't even look at it though. And he walks away, and we see the ending of this totem spinning and spinning and spinning, and then starts to kind of slow down and gets a little wobbly. And then it cuts to black. Mm-hmm. So we don't know for certain. And there's a lot of debate because later on, some people have, said that they hear the totem fall, or
bull.
Maybe that.
I call bull on that. I mean, I've cranked the stereo. I have gone every way I could to see if I could hear this totem fall. I've never heard it.
Yeah. So that's where the debate is did the top fall? Is it still standing? Does the top even make a big difference because it was not his totem anyway? Like he's using somebody else's totem that they used. So it kind of defeats the purpose according to the logic of the film. So there's this long, never-ending debate whether Cobb is still in a dream and he's reunited with everything he wants, or if it's actually reality that he's reunited with them.
So where do you land? What's your answer?
I feel like he's got to be in a dream state. There's just too many things. His children didn't age. The house looks the same. It was so simple for him to just kind of, and I understand they had choreographed this whole thing so that way when he got back on the plane doing this adventure, the guy was like, I'll make a deal with you. And once we complete this mission, I'll make one call and you'll be good to get through customs. And he was, but it all just seemed way too easy and he was way too happy. And I think that totem was still spinning. And not that it makes a big difference because I don't think that it was his totem to begin with, so it would have altered his reality. But it was just all way too aligned with his memories.
You know, I learned mal or mal, whatever it is, in French means bad.
Mal.
Yeah.
There's a fun little fact. So, John, where do you land on Inception? Is it dream or reality?
I think it's Maul's dream.
You think it's Maul's dream?
Yeah. I think Inception's Maul's dream. It's something that she is experiencing in her dream because you never really see his totem. You only ever see her totem. So you see it, and she pops up every now and again as a detractor of whatever it is they're doing. But I think it's more so her dream than anything, if it has to be a dream.
Like prior to her dying? Or this is like her... Okay.
Like her dying isn't really a thing that actually happened. This is just her dream.
I love that this movie has so many different ways you could take it.
Avenue. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm reality. I believe 100% he's in reality. And I'll explain why. If you go and watch the movie, he wears a wedding ring in all the dream scenes that he's in. He doesn't in reality. He's not wearing one in that end scene. And
yep, that's...
hang on. And he also, like, there's a big transportation. They talk about you don't really travel in dreams. You're there. You know, you don't really travel. Yet he's on a plane. He's going through the airport. You know, he's getting luggage, you know, all these things. So to me, all those things mean that it's reality and he finally is home. To me, that's what I got. But the wedding ring thing is a big thing. Go back and rewatch it. That's a true thing.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong about that.
That's called, wait. That means I'm right. You don't have to say you're not. Why do people say that? You're not wrong. I'm right.
No, I'm saying you're right on that part, the wedding ring part. But what I was going to say is that I don't think that guarantees that he's in reality. I actually think it's the opposite because even though that totem isn't there on his finger, it doesn't mean he doesn't have it. But more so, one of the things that they're saying, which you referenced, is like when you're in a dream, you can't recall how you got there. And one of the things that we see is we see him jumping through all of these activities. Suddenly he's awake in the plane, but then suddenly he's in the airport and there's no in between. And then suddenly we jump to him being at home. We don't see this travel to ensure that this is reality, that this is all something he's really experiencing. And you can chalk that up to...
Well, he's on a plane. That's travel. I mean, what do we got to take the camera and follow him all the way across the ocean?
That's what I mean. Like when he wakes up from his limbo and everything, supposedly, if he woke up from limbo, he woke up on the plane. We don't see him actually get into the airport, grab his luggage or anything like that.
I see what you're saying.
We don't see him actually travel to his house, which has not changed or aged at all, nor has his children, even though it's been years. So there's just a lot of factors that, according to the rules of the dream state, it doesn't show us that. I don't feel confident that we have enough evidence to prove that he is in reality. I feel like we have more evidence that he's still in a dream state.
The kid thing is a big thing because you're right. They look the same age.
They're the exact same. They're wearing the same outfit.
Hey, man. I mean, you know, I don't know how sparse clothes are in this world. Maybe he's broke. Okay.
I've just tuned everything you guys have been saying out, and I'm stuck on this whole "you're not wrong" bit. How like we don't have the ability of telling somebody, "Hey, you're right." That it's turned into, instead of telling somebody, "Hey, you're so right," that "Hey, you're not wrong."
Yep,
and
that's a thing now.
That's easier for people to say than. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you for summarizing my personality. I do appreciate it.
No, he's talking about everybody. It's not just you.
No, I know.
I'm talking about everybody. It's not just you. I hear it all the time, and it always makes me go, that means I'm right. Right? I mean, like, if I thought you were right, I would say you're right. I wouldn't say, well, you're not wrong. But
I catch myself saying it a lot too, but
I do.
For me, it's more like I'm being a smart ass about it. But yeah, I'm really just stuck on this, and I had an epiphany about it, and I just I need to be a bit better person.
Well, here, let me talk about my movie while you're trying to get over that. So my first one is American Psycho. Okay, and I know a lot of people probably haven't even seen American Psycho, but I'm going to ruin it for you anyway. So Christian Bale is Patrick Bateman, and he spends the whole movie killing people, and he loves Huey Lewis. So those are two things that I enjoy, watching movie characters kill people, not real ones, and Huey Lewis, because you can't go wrong, power of love and all that. But he's an absolute dick, but he also kills people. So towards the end of the movie, Bateman calls his lawyer and confesses to everything he did, leaves him a voicemail, confesses to all the murders and everything else, and he's just like, I did all this. And then he sees the lawyer the next day, and his lawyer blows it off as a joke. Basically, and he basically gets to a point where he's like, it's not funny anymore. Like, it's just not funny. Because he had lunch with one of the victims days ago, which means it's impossible that he could have killed him. So Christian Bale is just sitting there going, wait, what? And he's just super confused. He doesn't understand. So you're left, and it is one of the most frustrating endings of any movie I've ever seen, but I will always give it credit because it did make me think. It made me just stop and actually have conversations with people. And I think whenever you do that, that's not a bad thing. So I've had tons of conversations with people about how that ending works. So you either think that Patrick Bateman never killed all these people, it's all in his head, or he's just so rich, he can actually murder with impunity. He's just free to do whatever he wants. He's that rich. It can really go either way. I personally land with, it was all in his head. All of this violent, it's just things he wants to do and he wishes he could do, but he never actually did any of the things. Where do you guys land? If you saw the movie, I mean, you might not have seen the movie.
I've seen it a few times, and I don't think I've ever questioned it to the capacity that other people have, because to me it always just felt like it was the twist rather than an ambiguous ending. And I say that because once I get to that moment, I'm like, it all makes sense. This is a man who has literally gone through his own psychosis and possible hallucinations, and we are seeing what he believed to happen or wanted to happen through his own mind, through the distortion of his reality, rather than the actual truth of what's happened.
All right. And what about you, John?
I'm of two minds on it, because on the one hand, buying into what happened at the end of the movie explains a lot of things, and explains his actions, and explains away a lot of the problems. And also it's this great commentary on privilege. But if you go with the other side of the story, where he has just gone through a psychotic break, and that is equally as believable, because every single one of his kills were kills that should not have been that easy, but yet he pulled it off flawlessly. Like, especially that scene in the stairwell where he drops the chainsaw on the girl to kill her with it.
I love it. Sorry. That's a great scene.
It is a great scene. It's just that, and him running naked down the hallway for the whole thing, and magically nobody in this high-rise apartment has noticed a crazy psychotic guy yelling and screaming
Right.
after a woman with a chainsaw. Like, all these things are just way too perfect to not believe that he's having a psychotic break.
All good. All right. What's your first one, John?
So my first one is actually Take Shelter, which is a movie that I actually happen to love a lot. Michael Shannon plays Curtis, a guy who, and I'm just going to tell you the entire, a lot of what the story is, because I'm sure most of you haven't seen this.
I saw it.
And Aaron had to talk me down from using both the movies out of this guy's catalog.
Because it's like nobody's seen both of them. That's what
Right.
I'll go with. I mean, you've seen both of them. I've seen both of them, and that's probably about it. Amanda might have seen both of them, but that's probably it.
Right. So, Michael Shannon plays Curtis, a guy who starts to have these prophetic dreams and hallucinations. He sees a storm coming with a flock of big black birds, and that comes with this oily rain. So after a few days of having these dreams, he starts to bend into this will that's developing within him to build out his storm cellar and really make it this, quite honestly, a pretty swanky storm cellar. It's huge. He goes and steals stuff from work to make it.
Oh, yeah, it's a great bachelor pad. Swanky. I like it.
Yeah. It's in the ground. It's away from people. No windows. It's perfect, really, for either this or the American Psycho.
Yeah, they can meet up.
Yeah. And then he's like, his relationships really start to fall apart because he's just way too obsessed with this whole thing, and he starts pulling away from a lot of his friends, and even his wife starts to have problems with this, and who's played by Jessica Chastain. And then this big storm does come, but it turns out to just be a tornado. And the next morning after the tornado, she pushes him to open the doors, and he's wearing this gas mask saying they can't, and everything is bright and sunny and perfect outside when he finally does. So he agrees to go to counseling, and he agrees that it's probably time for him to go to a hospital. But before they do that, they go take a family vacation to the ocean. And at the end of the movie, like, his daughter signs to him because she's deaf that a storm's out there over the ocean. So he turns and looks at his wife, and the two of them look at the storm, then look at each other. And it's kind of this knowing look. And then they both come together on the stair set with big pane glass windows behind them. And you can sort of see the storm coming. And there's these drops of water that are coming down that are exactly as he described. So, and that's when the movie ends. Mm-hmm. So to me, I love this ending because it's like, is this really happening? Is this really the storm, or is this just another false alarm? But it looks like, by all accounts, that this is the thing that he was seeing the entire time.
Yeah, that's the way I took it too. That it was his premonition come true. So I'm with you on the ending in that one.
I haven't seen it, but the way that John described it, it sounds like that has to be the most logical answer. Like, that's what the movie was intending to lead you to.
On the plus side, you don't have to now. He just told you the whole movie. So, boom.
Yeah.
Well, as far as a movie is concerned, and as far as a viewing experience is concerned, definitely see this movie. It's a really fantastic movie, as well as the same movie from the same creative team, which is not the same movie, but different movies from the same creative team, which is Midnight Special. That's another one that has a great ambiguous ending, but it's another small movie that has a lot of big storytelling happening.
I'll disagree. I did not like Midnight Special, but I was so bored. I was like, nap time. But I like Take Shelter. Sorry.
Well, it's a good thing he picked that one rather than the other one,
I feel like
right?
it just rained all over. I brought the storm to your home. Amanda, what's your second one? So we can move on.
Okay, so my second one is Taxi Driver.
Oof, that's brutal.
Yeah, this movie was, it's good, it's tragic, it's a lot of things. But it's about this
You talking to
military...
me? Hey.
What?
You talking to me? You. Are you talking to me? You talking to... Man, you talking to me? You talking to me?
His mirror scene. So this movie is basically...
You talking to me?
Travis is a...
Wait, it's me, right? It's
war
me.
vet.
Him? Me?
Vietnam
me, him,
war
him,
vet.
Me? Him?
And it's a great commentary on the PTSD and the ramifications of the Vietnam War and coming home to a country that does not love or care about you, where you fought in a battle that you start to lose your faith in, and you start to see all of the horrible things from it, not to mention just PTSD from being in war. Mm-hmm. And so we start to see all of the trauma of this character, and you understand that he has a lot of hatred built up inside of him. And he decides to become a taxi driver. And as he's driving around, he's talking about the disgust he has for, the prostitutes and all of these people who are doing, criminal and despicable things in his mind. And he's quite racist also. But he eventually gets to a point where he's got this plan. He falls in love with this woman at first sight, gets extra crazy, and after they go on a date and he takes her to go see a porn screening, she leaves and is like, nah, this ain't happening. He decides that he's going to create this plan to go after the senator for which she is a campaign manager for. When they realize, when he comes up to go through this plan, realizes that he's on his way to try to kill a senator, he leaves, they start to come after him, whatever. But then after that, he decides, hey, I'm going to go try to help this 12-year-old prostitute who has been going through a lot of crap, and he has some level of sympathy for her because of her age, and goes after her pimp. And it turns into this giant shootout and lots of crime. And somehow then we start to see these news clippings of him becoming declared a hero, which, again, we're taking it back to that veteran PTSD and the reality of what they were facing when they came back and they were not seen as a hero, though, their actions nowadays are seen as heroic whenever you go out to war and come home. And so we see this heroic response that he's seeing in news clippings, and he's gotten out, he's survived, he, you know, saved a kid, he was doing all of this awesome stuff, but the question becomes, did that actually happen, or
was that his perception?
Is that his perception? Is this just another movie where we're seeing a distorted reality of somebody who craved to become a hero, who wanted society to look at him as doing heroic actions? And did, you know, where did it actually end? Did his life end in the shootout, or did it continue and he became a hero?
So where do you land?
I think it's in his mind.
Yeah.
I think the actions actually happened, but I don't think he survived. And I think that, or maybe he's in ICU, who knows? But I think this is just a figment of his imagination and of what he wanted to see.
Yep, 100%. I think it's PTSD, and it's just, he's finally getting the adoration he always wanted, and it's not real. It's not real. Because there's no way he's painted as a hero in this. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too.
All right. Not as ambiguous as we think.
Well, no, I mean, that's one of the most, celebrated ambiguous endings in history. I mean, a lot of people.
It's a pretty iconic ambiguous ending, but.
You know, the ending itself tells a story that leads you to a spot. And if that spot takes you to a place where you're like, hey, this is what I think happens, and just people happen to agree, that means that they just told the story so they didn't have to tell you the ending.
Yeah.
Well, my second one is Gone Girl, which is.
Really?
What messed up? Messed up. I think we've all dated Crazy Amy. I'm just saying. I know I have. But at the end of Gone Girl, Crazy Amy, that's her name. She's just crazy.
In the script, they actually wrote her in as Crazy Amy.
They should have, absolutely, if they didn't. And she clears Nick, her husband, of murder. You know, because she's the one who framed him.
Of her murder.
Of her murder. Which, if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry I ruined that one, but that is a great movie. You should be watching.
Oh, that ending is
brutal.
wild.
But I
couldn't sleep for a week.
I understood where Nick was coming from, though. As a dad, I get where Nick was coming from. Anybody who's been in those shoes, you know, stay a little bit too long because you're trying to do what's right, and then you find out many years later, boy, I really should have left a long time ago. Well, here's what happens. She gets herself pregnant by Nick by inseminating herself from Nick's sperm. This is true. This happened. If you never saw this movie, why haven't you seen it? I mean, it's almost better than Batman versus Superman, like in terms of the best Affleck. I'm just kidding. It's better than that. So Nick agrees to stay married to this absolute loon out of his debt to the baby. I mean, he just feels obligated. There's a heartbreaking scene with him and his sister too at the end where they're just having that discussion, and he's trying to explain why, and his sister's like, "Are you insane?" So the movie ends on a huge what happens now. Now, in terms of ambiguous, to me, it's a wonderful kind of ambiguous because it allows the audience to do a bit of fan fiction, right? Because you get to that point and you're just like, this is the absolute worst ending you could have pictured for this particular movie. But when it's over and you know all the pieces are played, and you see poor sad Nick telling the news that, oh, I'm going to be a dad. This is great. And he just looks like the world has ended in his eyes. From that point on, you get to think as an audience member how it plays out, which I love. If you're going to do an ambiguous ending, like that's a beautiful way to do it. Because you could actually have it where they kill each other. One kills the other one. And nobody would blame Nick now. I mean, you know what I'm saying? He's been cleared once. Amy's certainly capable, so she could kill him. He could try to get divorced, but what would happen in that scenario? So it's like a perfect kind of ending because it leaves you with the ability of writing your own ending, and you can decide how it ends. And to me, I would have Nick kill her because she's psycho. Once that baby is born, he kills her because nobody will believe that he did it now. And he basically just did it. He does it the exact same way that she had framed him for so that he can throw all blame off him. So that's what I would go with. What about you guys?
I find it easier to think that Nick kills himself after that.
That's plausible. I mean, I get that too. Yeah, that's plausible.
Yeah. Like everything that happens, everything that leads up to how he felt so trapped, how he couldn't go anywhere. I could picture him turning himself into a piñata at some point.
Oof.
I certainly feel like there's no... it's amazing that it didn't happen already at this point with everything he's gone through. But for him to stick around with her because of the baby, I don't think that his next reaction would be to take his own life. I see it more as him trying to find a way to frame her and for something horrible and get that child free from her, because I feel like his motivation was to stick around for this child and protect it. That's what my opinion was. He certainly could have left and even gone to jail, and he probably like internally would have felt safer. Like he would have been like, okay, this is a better option than being stuck with Looney Bin over there. However, that leaves that baby in a really horrible situation and mother to be stuck with. At least if he's around, he can try to offer some sense of security and comfort to this child and find some path out for them, even if it means him dying. And so once that child is free, then he could, take his life, or he could go to jail, or, whatever needs to be done to make sure that kid's safe. But I think that would be his next step.
I think you're giving him a lot of credit, because the thing about Nick is that by the end of that movie, he understands just how boned he is and just how completely outclassed he is when it comes to a criminal mastermind that his wife is.
That's the great thing about this ending, though. Like, you can write your own fan fiction. You can correct the mistakes, like the bad choices and whatnot. And that's why I love that ending. Yeah. Everybody's got like a different ending in their mind for what happens after.
Yeah, and I mean, just the way that they frame the beginning and put that at the end, to me, that's almost like signifying a loop, or that something new is going to occur within the same concept. Like, now he's thinking these questions. Now they're going to come to his head. What will we do now? What will happen now? And this was all something that occurred to her prior to her debauchery. Oh, man. And so to me, I think of it as him now being set up in the loop of him losing his mind because of this woman and entering a level of almost psychosis because of what he feels he has to do to get out and protect his child.
I could tell you there's not many movies where I've wanted to choke the antagonist that much. I'm just like, choke her, Nick, choke her. She's crazy.
I felt like I needed to go in witness protection.
Okay, serious question, though. So serious question.
Oh,
so in the movie, she gets to a point where she thinks that she's using this person and that they'll be able to be a good story for her. And they actually trap her and lock her in. And now she's held captive like a hostage, the way that she's always tried to hold Nick like a hostage. Did you feel any sympathy for her character simply in those moments?
No.
No? Okay.
No, not in the least.
Not even a little bit.
And especially when you start realizing what it is she's doing as she's being held captive, like she knows exactly what's going on. She knows, like, this is where I come back with, like, Nick knew exactly how boned he was because of how smart she was. As soon as he locked her in, and as soon as he started controlling her, she just looked at him like, this bitch right here. I am not doing anything like this. And that's when she decided she was going to, like, the very first time when he took the ice cream away from her or whatever it was, like, you're going to get fat. She just decided, all right, he's dead.
I think it even started sooner than that she was going to manipulate him in really awful ways, because she manipulated with him from the get-go about her whole life.
Yeah.
Everything.
She's crazy. That's why she got the name Crazy Amy.
Right.
All right, John, what's your second one? Then we'll move on to reviews.
All right, so my second and final one for this little bit of the show is The Thing. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and launch into anything about the story of The Thing. You've all seen it. If you haven't seen it, then you need to go see it, because Aaron loves it because it has Kurt Russell in it. So speaking of Kurt Russell, he plays this character, McCready, who's a helicopter pilot.
He's a hell of a helicopter pilot, apparently.
I was like, all of a sudden, waka, waka, waka. Anyhow. McCready and Gary and Knowles decide they're going to detonate the entire station in which they're staying on up there in the Antarctic. And as they set the explosive, Blair, who's infected, or the Thing, shows up and kills Gary and Knowles and then disappears again. Blair transforms into the enormous creature, destroys the detonator, and McCready triggers the explosives with a stick of dynamite, destroying the entire base. And as McCready is sitting there dying of exposure, I guess, that's when Childs finally shows back up and is like, hey, where you been? He's like, well, I got lost in the snow. Okay, you couldn't find the big explosion, dummy? Nope, couldn't find the big explosion. They both sit there and go back and forth about the futility of their situation, and then McCready takes a big sip of the whiskey that he was drinking, or scotch, and hands it over to Knowles, and they not Knowles but Childs, and they essentially decide to let themselves freeze to death. I think my opinion of this is that actually that McCready is not choosing to freeze to death, but actually poisoning himself and actively poisoning Childs so that he doesn't have to deal with the pain of freezing to death.
That's what. See, I took it to mean he knew one of them had this thing in them. That's why. So he wanted them both to die so they didn't bring it back to the mainland.
Exactly.
That's the way I took it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't part of the question who the thing is?
Who's the thing? I think McCready had the thing in him. That's why I've always thought had it.
I think Childs.
Really? Oh. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, because the thing always affects somebody off screen. It never infects somebody on screen.
What?
Well, I did a little cheatery, I'll admit.
Oh,
so there's a
cheatery.
statement by the cinematographer who said that the lighting indicates who is human and who is not.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you take that into account, then it should be Childs is the thing.
What does the lighting do? What are they doing? They just the way it's shaded and whatnot?
Yeah, like one person is more illuminated and one is not. And I can't remember if the human or if the thing is more, well, like which one's more illuminated and which one's less. But according to the cinematographer, that's as close as we've ever gotten, I think, to
an answer.
Any sort of confirmation.
So all these, so for like 40 years, I've had this wrong? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, it's still not even a clear answer because they don't tell you which way. They just tell you that the lighting, and I don't have the direct statement, and I probably should have been more prepared in having it. But
well, then I'm saying the lighting went the other way. It's McCready. Boom. I'm right.
Well, wait a minute. That gentle
Amanda,
glow that's coming off.
You're not wrong, though. Huh?
I'm not wrong.
But that gentle glow that you see coming off of Kurt Russell isn't actually in the movie, Aaron. That's just your eyes.
I see it in every movie he's ever
Oh my God. That was so cheesy and also kind of perfect for him.
It's kind of true. It's so angelic. You know what? Speaking of Kurt Russell, we're going to move on now to our HO Teachable Minute. See, we're doing the whole format. It's all over
What
the
does
place.
that have to do with Kurt Russell?
Well, if you wait a minute, I will tell you.
Yeah, you let him have his moment in the sun.
I get it.
My God.
Because he's about to talk about Captain Ron.
I had a perfect segue, and now kaput. So at this moment, you are wrong. The HO Teachable Minute, normally we have it right at the very end of the show, which is where we talk about one thing we learned in movie or television over the past week. Well, this time we're each getting a little crack at this. Listener Ken, he made a request for each of us to take one of our absolute favorite actors and recommend a film of theirs that no one ever talks about, but you would argue is one of their best roles. In other words, we don't talk about it on the podcast all the time. So here we go. So John, one of your favorite actors, and tell us what that movie is that you recommend that you rarely get to talk about.
Okay, so the movie that I chose is a movie called, damn it.
I don't remember that title.
Mm-mm.
Is that new?
Was that,
no.
Is that Godzilla? Because you talk about that all the time.
Yeah, you're not supposed to use something you talk about all the time.
Yeah, I know. I just went completely blank on what the title. I have everything else written down but the title of the stupid movie, and I went completely blank.
Well, let's play a game. Tell us what the movie is, and we'll tell you if we know the title.
All right, let's play that game then. So two strangers stuck in Manhattan for the night grow into each other's most trusted confidants, and when an evening, an unexpected adventure forces them to confront their fears and take control of their lives. It's a beautiful movie that stars Chris Evans, who's one of my favorite actors, and Alice Eve.
Before we
that's
go?
a good movie.
No.
That's the one.
Is it?
Aaron got
before we go?
Before we go.
Okay. Boom.
It's a cute movie.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's play it that way because I thought that's a fun game.
Let's see if I can prepare for this.
Okay, here we go. So obviously, Kurt Russell, my favorite actor of all time. So he has a ton of movies that everybody talks about, me especially. But it's my favorite actually thriller of his that is rarely mentioned is a film
Rest Stop,
where he plays Jeff Taylor and his wife is suddenly kidnapped after their car breaks down. And then the rest of the film is him hunting for her to try to bring her back safely. It's a very intense, thrilling film. He's fantastic in it. It's very much kind of against his typical characters. And you can stream it. It's on Stars and Showtime. It's on Sling for free. We buy it. It's cheap. It's worth it. Do you know what the movie is?
I thought it was Rest Stop was the title of it, but I guess I'm wrong.
You were wrong. I'm sorry. You're not right.
I ain't got nothing.
Breakdown. The movie's called Breakdown.
That's the one.
Yeah.
All right.
Fantastic thriller. Like fantastic if you've never
I
seen
think
it.
Rest Stop was the not Keith Richards, the
Kiefer Sutherland?
Kiefer Sutherland one.
Sure. I don't know. It isn't Breakdown. I can tell you that. Amanda, what's yours?
Right.
Okay, so my actress is Lily James.
Wow.
And this
Downton
is
Abbey.
This is actually, it's hard to not give it away. I don't know how to describe it. So she is playing a woman who is a master of martial arts and weaponry.
It's that vampires or zombies one. It's the Pride and Prejudice and Zombies one.
Damn it. Too easy.
Well, I mean, Lily James vampire movie. I don't think she's done a ton of them. So
she's done Zombie, but
okay. Well, why that one? Why do you like that one so much?
that was the first movie I think I saw her in, and I remember watching that movie, and I had kind of like moderate expectations, and I was watching, and I was like, this is a fun movie. This is like, it actually turned out to be a great movie, and I really, really enjoyed it. I actually bought it, and that doesn't happen super often. And I just kept thinking how utterly enchanting her character is. Like, I just cannot stop looking at what she's doing, and I'm just encapsulated by her performance. And when I see that and I compare it to some of the other works that she's done, when you see her in Cinderella and Mamma Mia and all these different things in the Guernsey Literary Potato Peel Society, I missed a word, all of these different things, she is just so talented. And this is a fun movie that blends horror with, older literary works. And I just think it's a great way for it to be done. And she just was such a standout and a knockout in that film.
Excellent. Well, that was a fun game. We'll try that again sometime. Now we're going to go into reviews, and these are spoiler free. I promise you, we will not talk about anything spoilery for Tenet. I promise. And you'll hear the end show tagline and everything before we do that. Okay. So you're fine. I promise. But first up, we've got the New Mutants. That one where the guy misspelled their name. Loosely based on the 1982 graphic novel. John and I both saw this, even though you won't find Professor Xavier in it, even though he was in the graphic novel. Remember that, John? Mm-hmm. So very loosely based. Danny Moonstar is played by Blue Hunt, and she escapes the destruction of a tornado hitting her Native American reservation, only to wake up in a hospital facility. She learns from Dr. Reyes that her father is dead, and she is being held for treatment at this facility until she can learn to control her mutant powers, proving she will no longer be a danger to the world. But she doesn't know what her powers are. Now, Danny also quickly learns that there are a small assortment of other mutants being treated at this facility. Eliana Rasputin, that's Anya Taylor-Joy. She's like a sorceress who carries her favorite purple dragon Lockheed with her everywhere. Rain Sinclair, who's Maisie Williams, a lycanthrope. Sam Guthrie, he's played by Charlie Heaton. He's a young man who can fly at incredible speeds like a cannonball and has the thickest Kentucky accent you've ever heard. It's not well done. And Roberto Da Costa is played by Henry Zaga. He's essentially an uncontrollable fireball. Each of these mutants struggles with some kind of childhood trauma. Character development is a little spotty, but they're all trapped in this mysterious facility. It's surrounded by this huge force field. And that's the story. Now, John, you and I both know this graphic novel. Do you think they did a fair job of adapting the source material for this very last Fox X-Men before it ends up being reborn in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
No, it didn't do that great of a job of adapting it.
No, they didn't.
However, but that's not to say it's a bad movie. That's just to say that the stuff that was in the graphic novel wasn't necessarily here in this movie. They definitely try to make it like their own thing, as opposed to like, sort of like very Marvel-ish, where, Captain America is a spy story and, Ant-Man is a science story and, that sort of thing. Well, they try to do that sort of like, we have a theme we're going to work with, and then the theme is going to be a quasi psychological thriller with comic book characters. And they did that. It almost worked. It just never really got dark enough or scary enough to completely work.
Yeah, it's like you could tell Josh Boone directed it, and you could tell he was trying really, really hard to make this a very horrifically styled film. Like he wanted to lean into the horror elements of it. but never did he lean far enough to where it would actually be horror. Or yeah,
it was very much like we got to make sure kids can still see this.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like every time they were trying to lean into it, they kind of muted it a little bit.
Right.
How about the actors? Do you wish you would have gotten so much more of them in future movies? Like when you walked out of this one, you're like, I would have loved to see them get their own movie or do something else down the line. It's too bad that they probably won't be in the MCU.
Well, it's kind of unfair because like the characters are something that are special to me. I love all these characters, and to finally see all these characters on the screen, I really enjoyed. But as far as acting is concerned, Anna Taylor-Joy really pushed it hard with Magic, which is what her code name is in the comics, and in this they kind of allude to that. She really pushed it a little too hard to the point where she was practically annoying with how much of a bad girl she was. But again, it kind of made up for it when you saw her go full Magic. It was pretty much worth it. And then to actually see Lockheed in a movie was really thinking, like, I thought that was cool. Do you?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, because Lockheed is his hand puppet, and once she becomes Magic, it becomes a real dragon. And you're like, Dracarys. You know, I mean, it's like it's very, very much like, you know, Daenerys riding a dragon. It was just very cool. Yes, I love when things like that happen.
Yeah, no, it worked. That part all worked out very well. And then you have the other characters. Rain was very cool to see on screen, and Cannonball, I even though you had a problem with his accent, which I think because I was preloaded with the accent concern, I didn't find it nearly as annoying. But I also don't have family that play banjos. So
hey, listen here, buddy. All right, you had like 16 episodes where you bitched about how Vin Diesel said boat in one movie. I just said the accent sounds drunk. It's like drunk Kentucky. It's like the worst Kentucky accent I've ever heard. And
yeah, but Charlie Heaton was probably high the entire time.
Yeah, why does he get a pass and Vin Diesel doesn't for one word?
Because Vin Diesel is playing somebody who is living in a place that speaks Spanish. And
I can't. All right, continue. It's a ridiculous argument.
Right. Aren't they all, though? Aren't they all?
Pretty much, yeah.
I really loved seeing the characters, and that was like, if there's any sort of saving grace to this, I think though the story didn't push the limits very hard, and though the actors probably had some quibbles, the characters they were playing felt very real to me.
Yeah, that's the only downside to this is, you know, we've had 3 years waiting for this thing to come out. They've had plenty of time to redo a lot of it, but once you see it, you're just like, man, they could have done this story so much better. It's a really cool story. It really is. And I don't think it was bad at all either. I think it was just okay. It was perfectly okay.
One of the things I liked about the story is just how small it was. It wasn't something where you had a whole bunch of heroes running for a big light in the sky or anything like that. It was very small. There was no world-ending catastrophe to deal with. And it's just refreshing to see that they can actually do a story like that.
It was very cool to see Demon Bear come to life, which is something that I was really looking forward to. And I don't think they failed on that. I thought it was pretty well done.
Yeah.
Oh, was it worth the wait at this point? I mean, if $10 is the full price of admission, what do you give the New Mutants?
If I'm going to be 100% honest, if it came out before COVID, I would say that I would have probably given it a 4. But because it came out during and after COVID, I'm going to give it a 5.50, honestly.
It gets a COVID upgrade?
It gets a COVID upgrade. I mean, even though I was kind of scared for my life because I live in Florida going in the movie theater, but I was just happy to be there, and I was in a great mood, and I felt like any sort of history of watching movies in a theater was kind of gone, and and it's a great moment to rebuild that.
Absolutely. I have the same score. I would have given it the same score no matter what. It's an enjoyable enough film. It just doesn't do anything that it should do. There's a lot of things it could do. It could do a little bit better. Now, you also saw Bill and Ted Face the Music, which I didn't see, but Troy Heinrich reviewed us on the site. He gave us $7. He was a big fan of this one. You enjoyed it, I think, but let me ask you real quick. So Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter return as Ted Logan and Bill Preston, Esquire, and they're now fathers of 2 similar daughters and are needed to go out, be excellent to each other, and save the frickin' world by writing the song to save us all. My number one question, I have not seen it, so I'm asking you, does Keanu and Alex both still have it as Bill and Ted?
They do. The only caveat I'll have to that is this is the first time I've seen Keanu in anything, and his age is shown through.
Oh, because he doesn't have the beard in this.
He doesn't have the beard, and so his age kind of seeps out a little bit, and his movement isn't as like fun and jovial as we remember Ted being. And I always had to remember which one's Bill and which one's Ted because they're the same creature to me.
That's fair.
But and the thing is, I love these characters. One of the reasons why I love these characters so much is that there's, of course, the first two movies. But over the years at Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Orlando, there used to be a Bill and Ted show. And what they would do is, and there was a series about 5 or 6 years with my friends and we would all go to Halloween Horror Nights. And that was my favorite part because you'd be Bill and Ted living through the movies of that year because it, happens in October. And so, you had them come out, they did a whole song and dance thing and it was very cool. And you get these songs stuck in your head and you have Darth Vader popping out and all these other characters from the different movies. Blade came out in one of them. It's just very cool experience. And they have like a really cool place in my heart. So I love it so much. But yeah, as far as like, do they still have it? Totally, dude. Totally.
And their daughter, Samara Weaving, which everybody here on this show loves, and Bridget Lundy Payne. How were they as Bill and Ted's daughters? I mean, because do they emulate their dads?
So Bridget Lundy Payne, if you would have told me that was Keanu Reeves' daughter, I would have bought it. Would have absolutely bought it because of the way she talked, the way she moved. She did a very, very believable impression of young Ted. It's Ted, right? Yeah.
Oh, so
yes,
so
Ted
Billy named his daughter after Bill, and Bill named his daughter after Ted.
Yes.
Thea. Okay. All right. So she does a great Keanu Reeves.
She does a great Keanu Reeves. Now, unfortunately, Samara Weaving, who, yes, I love her in just about everything I've ever seen her with, and like she didn't shine nearly as bright as Bridget did in this, and I kept on getting a little distracted by it because we've seen her in so many things, and she is just so great.
She's always the brightest light in every movie she's in.
Yeah, she's always the brightest light, and she wasn't that in this one.
That's too bad. All right, so here's my other we're gonna get to Tenet here in a second. Spoiler free first, but a lot of times when you have like this much distance between films, because the first film's like late '80s, early '90s. It's too long, so you finally get the sequel and you're like, why did I wait so long for this? But I've heard nothing but great times and smiles that have erupted from this movie. Did you feel that the time was right for Bill and Ted to come have this third movie? Was it worth it? Especially
right now, I think it's a good time for it because Bill and Ted is always something that comes in and brings in this air of hope to it. So I don't mind the length of time, and as a matter of fact, I think I do appreciate it. My other quibble, as far as there's 3 concerns I have with it, which is Samara Weaving wasn't great. There's a little bit of a plot hole when it comes to the wives, and then my final quibble with this is that I didn't walk out or finish this movie and have a song stuck in my head.
Yeah, that's big for Bill and Ted.
It is big. It's an important thing for like the first 2 movies. You walk out of those first 2 movies, you've got Kiss in your head or you got something else in your head, and it just has this great anthem playing to it. That doesn't happen this time, and that's my one concern about it, besides the 2 smaller ones.
But the movie, like, you're glad they still made this movie. It's not one where you watch and you're like, it's not like Dumb and Dumber 2 where you're like, I just wish you wouldn't have done it. Like, just left it alone.
Yeah, no, I'm glad they did this. It was well worth it.
And I got to ask you, do you wish you would have released in the theater, or do you wish they would have released this in the theater? Like, because this feels like a movie where people want to go and watch it with friends. Or was the way you watched it fine? You were happy with it?
The way I watched it, I think, was fine, and I'm happy with it. If there was, like, that's one of those things that goes back to the whole rock anthem bit, because if there was that huge rock anthem, I would have loved to have been able to appreciate it in the larger theater. Mm-hmm. But because it wasn't there, it doesn't give me a reason to want to see it more in the theater. Does that make any sense?
It does, yeah. It does. All right, now we're going to do... Oh, I'm sorry. $10 for price of admission. I almost forgot. What do you give Bill and Ted Face the Music?
I give Bill and Ted $5.50.
Hang on. So I just want to point this out. So New Mutants, which you sounded about, you gave a COVID bump. But Bill and Ted Face the Music does not get a COVID bump?
No, it doesn't get a COVID bump. I need you to understand. It's an enthusiastic, I love this movie 550.
The 550 is not I love this movie. It's like it's okay.
He's keeping his fan goggles off.
Okay. All right. It's not Fantastic Beasts, is what you're saying, Amanda.
Right. It's not Winnie the Pooh,
That movie is a 10, goddammit.
I could sit here and go on and on about how great and fun the movie is, but then I would have to address the fact that there's a giant plot hole in there that you could drive a fucking truck through. You know, I've already mentioned that, and you can drive a truck the size of Optimus Prime's boner all the way through this thing and then back through again. You can bend it in half and still fit it in there.
Like that's what's happening right now.
This is turning into sexual innuendo.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know how I got here
Amanda,
either.
let's stop being innuendo and just sexual.
But my point is, there's a huge plot hole in there. Like, it's not going to win any sort of script writing awards because it's not that kind of movie. But this is the kind of movie where you're going to have a great time and you're going to love the characters and it's going to be bouncing around and doing some silly crap. It's a good time for all those things.
But that plot hole is huge. Got it.
But as somebody who has to occasionally answer to my scores to these things, I have to give it a 550.
All right, fair enough. Now, Amanda, we can finally talk about Tenet.
Spoiler free,
and then we're going to close the show out, and then we'll roll into some spoiler stuff. So,
yes,
you guys don't have to worry. We'll just tell you if it's worth your time. Go ahead.
Yep. So, armed with only one word, Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. I laugh because Robert Pattinson is in here in Twilight. And
we got it.
Okay.
We got it.
Hey,
so Aaron,
that's a good point.
It's funny.
It really is.
It was funny anyway until John ruined it.
Yeah.
This is Christopher Nolan's latest, and I don't think you think it's the greatest.
You're the one who decided to describe your joke. You could have just left the joke alone, and it would have been so much better.
You're not wrong. So Nolan is doing his Nolaniest Nolan with the way he convolutes the story and messes with your mind.
Yeah,
did it feel like
Nolan.
too much, or did it live up to the hype for you?
It does go full Nolan. I'm not exaggerating that. It's very complicated. You know what I will say? I don't think it's as complicated as people will probably make it out to be. Once the movie ends, I think it pretty much makes sense. It's not like Inception where you're like, what just happened? Like, you get it. But I do feel like there are a lot of times where he's almost just finger pointing at the audience going, you're not as smart as me. You're not as smart as me. And that can be it takes me out of it a little bit. That said, I mean, it's a weird concept. It's a very weird, it's almost like an indie movie with blockbuster budget. You know, I'm shocked he got this approved for $200 million. I mean, once you see it and you see it play out, it's really like James Bond with time travel elements or inverted, whatever, however you want to see it. That's basically what it is. It's almost like this is Christopher Nolan finally got his chance to tell a James Bond story, and he told it, and he decided to put some Nolanisms in it. So he threw a little inverted time thing in there.
I would say, because you're talking about the James Bondy thing, and I think that's the action that comes in with the blockbuster. I feel like there's so much of the story that is traditional Christopher Nolan storytelling, but because he has the budget, he's like, well, I'm going to do this with a bit of a bang. So it's simple. It's simple once the movie concludes, but it is a wild path.
You will be
when you go down it.
Yeah, you'll be confused for many long portions of the movie, but it does come together like most of his movies do. I mean, whenever he has a puzzle like this, Memento, Inception, those are prime. Interstellar, which I didn't love that one, but the same thing. The puzzles come together at the end.
Even in Insomnia.
Yeah, even Insomnia. I mean, he loves to put a puzzle together. Mm-hmm. And that's what this movie is. And you get little pieces of it which is funny because as the movie starts, like the first half hour, they kind of give you a rough, quick example of how this works in the movie. You've seen it in the trailer.
They do, but it's so quick that you might even miss it.
Yeah. And then you start overthinking the crap out of it because of the things that happen. And then you get to the end going, wait, it really was that simple. I really should have just paid attention to the lady when she was talking. And I probably would have got this a lot quicker.
So overall, you enjoyed it, but there were moments that were...
Yeah. But I do want to say, like, you're like, it definitely, the story elements felt like Nolan. It felt like Nolan as soon as the movie opens and you're like, BAM! It was pretty quick. The action scenes were great.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to ask about the duo that we have on screen between John David Washington and Robert Pattinson, who who is receiving a lot of credit right now, and we're familiar with John David Washington already, or notoriety, I guess, rather than credit. So what did you think of this duo?
Well, I think John David Washington is much shorter than his dad, because Denzel is 6'1". So, and he.
Oh my God! I don't know why I didn't put this together.
You didn't know that was his son?
No.
Yeah, that's his son, but he's 5'9". But I swear, I don't know what it is.
5'9" is not that short.
It's not that
even for a dude.
It's not that short, but for whatever reason, when Nolan's shooting him, he makes him look short. Like there's several scenes where it looks like Kevin Hart.
You're so mean. It doesn't help that Robert Pattinson is like a good 4 to 5 inches taller than him. Like almost
it's every
half a
character.
foot.
The actress,
Yeah.
Cat is taller than him. Everybody's taller than him. Usually when you have movies
This poor
like this, where you have, Tom Cruise is a prime example. They always cast him with short actors, or they put him on blocks or whatever the hell they do to make him look taller. They didn't do this. And so like there's several scenes where he's next to very tall people, and it's just obvious. But it doesn't matter. I mean, he beats some ass.
It doesn't. Yeah, I don't feel like it affects
Not at
the
all.
way you see his performance, or which can be distracting, because sometimes when you see that difference in height, and it takes you a minute to be like, oh my, I didn't expect this. Like I just did not anticipate it. Like when you genuinely understand how short Kevin Hart is, and you see him standing next to like The Rock where he could squish him with his toe, it takes you a second. I didn't feel taken back by this height thing. I didn't notice it as much.
It's just the way it was shot. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not. I mean, he's 3 inches shorter than me. He's not that short. But I'm 6 foot. I'm almost as tall as his dad. In terms of the duo, I thought they were really good. I mean, I think John David Washington is a great actor. I think he's really got presence, and he carries himself well. He's got it. The it thing, not as much as Papa, but he's still got it. Robert Pattinson, I liked since he left Twilight. I mean, as soon as he stopped doing Twilight, I've enjoyed it. And just to go to where John was bashing your joke, it's really funny because in the movie, like the thing that they tell you to it's kind of like a code phrase is we live in a Twilight world. Well, that's distracting when you know Robert Pattinson's in the movie. So like the first time you hear it, it's like, you just giggle. Like I can't take that phrase seriously, and he should have known better. He should have made it anything else. Like it just, every time I heard it, they always meant it very serious, and you were supposed to take it very serious. And every time I'm like, it's funny.
So I have another question for you, and this is not my final question, but it's one that I feel like I have to ask you, and we'll keep it brief.
Okay.
So this is only because it's come up in conversation, and I really just have to get to the bottom of it. Did you feel like there was a sound mixing or some other sound issue with The Dark Knight Rises when it came to Bane, where you couldn't understand him?
The Dark Knight Rises or this one?
The Dark Knight Rises. Just hold on, I'm getting there.
Oh, yes. Sometimes it not as bad as in this one though. This one was very distracting.
So in this one, did you feel like it was more the sound editing, or did you feel like it was more there are a lot of accents, which is great because it's a very diverse cast. However, I feel like it's not easy on the American uncultured ears.
I think there's probably some truth to that, but I will say, because I noticed this very early on, and it was a problem for me throughout the movie. Like there was several times where I'm like, I'd love subtitles right now. Like I would turn them on if I was at home, because Christopher Nolan, he shoots beautifully. I mean, and everything in this movie is very cinematic. He shoots this movie beautifully. It's wonderfully composed. The music is astounding, and just like most of his movies, music thump 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 through the whole movie. I mean, it permeates throughout the entire film. It's very well paced. Even though it's 2.5 hours, I was never bored. On the same token, because he always has this music, and it keeps he uses the music to create a mood, to create an intensity. It's very much a character in the film. It builds. And a lot of times when they're having very serious conversations, the music overwhelms the conversation, and I can't make out everything they're saying. And that part was a little distracting, specifically in this movie. Like I noticed it right away. I'm like, that was not great mixing, because you should be able to, no matter where the music is, you should be able to make out, because these are important conversations, like pivotal plot points where you have to really pay very close attention and you can barely hear them. And that's not great.
See, I'm partially deaf anyway, so it doesn't help. And throughout COVID, I've been using a tremendous amount of subtitles and relying on them a little too heavily at home. So I felt like when I was going to the theater, I was like, it's kind of a combination of that and the accents. But I
Accents are
noticed
thick too. Yeah, they are.
They are, which is, again, I love it. But it's difficult for people who are not constantly listening to those different accents. And there's a lot back and forth. But yeah, I didn't, there were times where I guess I heard things a little clearer than others. And that's not usually the case. So I wondered if I was maybe in obscurity to it, because I've seen a lot of comments from people in the group even have noted.
I think you're going to hear a lot more.
So my final question is, between Inception, Memento, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, Prestige, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. So it's 8 of basically his greatest and most of his films.
Okay.
Where do you rank Tenet in this list?
Oh, man, that's...
So nine movies total. Where are you ranking Tenet?
I mean, I would put it over Insomnia and Prestige. I'm not a huge Prestige fan, so don't bash me there. But it's under Inception, Memento, the Batman films. It's above Interstellar, probably. Or at least it's close to it, yeah. It's somewhere, it's above the middle, but it's not at the top.
Fair enough, fair enough. So, I think I need to see it again. It's just one of those movies... Fair. Just because I feel like it's one of those movies where the first time you see it, you spend so much time trying to beat Nolan because you know Nolan's going to Nolan you.
There is truth to that.
So it's like a competition in my mind, at least. And I'm like, where is this going? How is this going to conclude? What are the key objects? Like, I never focus on a film as much as I do when I'm watching his, and they're just so beautiful to look at. Mm-hmm. So but once I got to the end, as you mentioned, I was like, I think it's a great concept. And I think it was well done in the way that he presented it. Even as convoluted as it seems, it is like putting together a puzzle. I think that's a great way to explain it. But I wonder if a second viewing, I'm going to be like, I already know how this unravels. Does it still hold up?
Most of his films, I find, once you figure the puzzle out, it's actually still fun to go watch it, because now it makes more sense. Where I agree with you. The whole first time you were watching it, I was trying to put it together in my head. And now you know how the pieces fit, so you can just enjoy the movie. Yeah,
definitely. Mm-hmm. So if the full price of admission were $10, what are you giving Tenet?
I give it $7.
Okay.
Where are you at?
I gave it 8.
Okay, that's pretty good. You really enjoyed it.
I did.
You know what? We've got a lot more to talk about with Tenet, but we're going to wait. This is where we're going to go into spoiler stuff. So we're going to close the show out. Say goodbye to John. John, get your ass back here.
Bye.
Well, hang on.
Wow, that was awfully quick.
Yeah, he's just been waiting for the opportunity. He's like, I could have left 10 minutes ago.
I could have signed off that whole time ago.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. If you don't want to hear Tenet, I want to say thank you for listening. We will be off the week of Labor Day, but hopefully, if you feel safe, you can go back to the theater and see Tenet. You can, I guess, go see New Mutants if you have to. But really, I mean, Tenet is really where we want to go, I would think.
Sidebar, as a recommendation, if you have not seen it, Robin Williams has a stellar performance in Insomnia in a very weird way. So you should go watch that.
That's a good film if you haven't seen it.
That's a Nolan film.
Yep. All right, guys, well, share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group, which is The Hollywood Outsider. We're on Twitter @BuyPopcorn. Our site is TheHollywoodOutsider.com. You can also email us if you'd like, feedback@TheHollywoodOutsider.com. We have an interview with Flavio Alves, who directed The Garden Left Behind, a film about an immigrant trans woman going through her journey of discovery. You can hear that. It's a really, really interesting interview. You can hear that in our feed. It's there right now. But stick around for more Tenet. Amanda and I are going to stick around. John's taking off. So remember, the next time you head to a theater to see Tenet, buy popcorn. Okay, guys, now we are into the Tenet spoiler cast. So I would recommend that you have seen this movie, or you just don't give a rat's ass if the shit is ruined, because we're going to talk about Tenet right now. Amanda and I are the only ones that saw it, so we kicked John's bitch ass to the curb, and it's us.
Bye-bye.
So let's talk about the spoilers. What did you think about the whole inverted time dynamic? Did you like this?
You know, surprisingly I did, because normally I'm not crazy about convoluted time travel where you have to keep track of all of the rules.
It's pretty convoluted. It is very much so. And I think what gets me the most is
looking at it going forward, their inversion, watching the inversion happen trips me up. And I know they explain it in the beginning, and my eyes caught it, but I was like, how does, logistically in my mind, I'm like trying to put together, okay, so it's in the past, it didn't happen, but then in the future they needed to go back to change something, so then it changed, but then it's happening then in the other past, but we're all still in one timeline? Okay. So
exactly,
it just messes with your mind, time travel in general. But it was still a lot of fun, and I think a really clever way to put, I don't know, science to this concept. Because, there's been some theory that there's a way that time travel exists, but not in the capacity that we think of it as on Earth. And this was a way to kind of transform that into a possible realistic option, which was scary.
Yeah, it was one of those things where as I was watching it, I got it as it went. You know what I mean? I mean, it started to get a little trippy because it really felt like it could only be, it was almost like Wanted, where, you know, you bend the bullets and whatnot. I'm like, oh, so it's in your mind? But it is kind of in your mind. But I don't understand like how people...
It's intention. Yeah, it's all about intention.
Yeah, but the one thing that really, I guess I didn't really get, is like, just so anybody can do it? Like anybody can do this? Because it really kind of felt like anybody can do it. Because, I mean, he didn't seem very special at any point, other than he's a gifted agent and he can whoop some ass. But he just really picks up and takes off with this thing. You know, I mean, he sees it once or twice. He's like, all right, I got it. I'm like, I feel like there should be more training involved.
Well, and I think that's the thing, is that anybody can do it. And that's a little bit what is scary about it. And it's not that just anybody can accidentally do it, because the whole thing that it keeps repeating is this concept of intention and of your actions actually progressing this to happen. So if you put your hand over the bullet with the intention to drop it, it's going to, that's an intentional action. So the time just like mixes and whatever. But there's also that capacity of like, you have to have the right component with it. So the plutonium. So it can't just happen with anything anywhere.
Right.
It has to occur with that specific metal, right? That's a metal.
It has to be inverted metal.
Chemical.
Yeah, it has to be the inverted metal, which is, it's an odd concept. But okay, I mean, it's just one of those things where you got to roll with it. But what I did like about how they did it was they introduced it at the very beginning, and they introduced it as a very small portion. And then they gradually, as the film goes on, build and build and build. So, you know, when he first figures out how it works, it's a bullet. You know, it's a matter of seconds. And then as it goes, it becomes longer and longer until like you're in that final act where you've got him going back several days. And you find out at the very end that Robert Pattinson has come back from years earlier. So, I mean, it becomes like a much broader, grander vision as the movie goes on. And I really dug that, because the first half of the movie, they don't really use it very much. You know, they don't really use...
You see it in the very first sequence, though, because...
You do, because of that gunshot.
When you have that opera, when you're in that opera room, and then you see the hole close up of the seat on the seat, and then the bullet is like going backwards, so it's inverting, and he's like, what is going on? But it's so quick that I think people who are just sitting there starting to enjoy their popcorn might miss that moment.
Possibly. I mean, I feel like the camera did a good job of focusing on it. I'm like, wow, what was that? What the hell? The bullet came out? I don't understand.
Yes, but it's so quick that if you weren't looking at that moment, you could miss it. And then you're waiting all of this time to try to get your brain going about what's happening before they explain it to you. And they do a nice job of explaining it, and they give you a visual aid and everything, and that was cool. So,
and it's what I thought was great is all of the connections. You know, I mean, they did a lot of rolling the film backward and whatnot, different scenes, because of this whole time inversion thing. And then you'll get scenes where you have like a car that he was driving ends up on the road and flipping and whatnot. And it's played in both directions, you know, both forward in time and back in time. And you also have him fighting himself, which was choreographed magnificently. Like that whole time you're thinking there's two different people. And because of the whole inversion and time element, he's playing with time travel so much. It's the protagonist, which that's his actual character's name, right? Everybody else gets a name, but he gets the protagonist. But he's basically fighting Neil, Robert Pattinson, and he's also fighting the protagonist. While he's doing both at the same time because of how this time issue works. It's a very cool concept. It really requires you to suspend disbelief for a big portion of it, because
they unravel it nicely though, because even when you were talking about him fighting himself, they take it where it looks like you're fighting two guys. You see Robert Pattinson do the whole helmet thing, and all of a sudden he's just gone, and you're like, wait, what? Like, you're just gonna, that's it? Because he obviously recognized something.
I knew he recognized, it was either him. I thought it was him, actually. I thought he saw himself or something.
But then they backtrack it and they tell you that it had to have been one person. And so I was like, oh, well, then I was on the same thinking, like, oh, then it must have been like Robert Pattinson's character. And then they finally get to the point where it's like, oh, no, it was actually him. And you're like, what? So that was a nice reveal.
Mind blown. And Kick-Ass is in here too, and his accent's a little dodgy, but outside of that, it was pretty good. So
Aaron Taylor Johnson, right?
Yep. So was there anything in here you didn't understand? Like, you walked out of it going, I do not know what the hell.
The only thing that I struggled with was keeping track of the timeline of events in order, because you have them played out for you. You have them played out as if they're the past, but then you also have them going back in time to change things. And so keeping track of all of those elements in the timeline was a lot.
Yeah, I needed a notepad. I'm like, wait, what? Okay. All right. I think I got it.
Even still, I'm kind of like, how does that? I have to watch it again just so I can focus on the timeline of events to understand. Because even his thing, the mission he was sent on, in the very, very, very beginning, and then he goes to that the little things floating in the ocean. What are those things called? Where he actually like lived inside of for forever.
Ships?
It felt like. No, not the ship. He didn't. It was before he got onto the ship.
The
it
container?
was while he was waiting. Yeah. And so that thing that's floating in the sea. That moment reveals to be as like a past moment too. And so I'm like the whole thing, just like the timeline messes me up. I understand the actions. I understand the events, and I understand how it all connects in the end. Mm-hmm. But keeping track of the order is like
very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah. I walked out going, I think they should just call it, the movie. But it does. I was getting, when you got to that final act, I was really starting to go, I'm like, man, I hope this is going to make sense soon. And then it really starts to come together. I'm like, oh, okay. Once you realize it was him fighting himself the whole time. And once you see like Kenneth Branagh's character do his little time back and forth, like that whole third act really put all the pieces together and made it all make sense, which is really funny. We got some set pieces, like repeat set pieces from different perspectives and different points of time, which I thought was a really clever way to do that.
Yeah, no, that was excellent. And it was the perfect way to reveal it to us, because we were already familiar with it, and we're thinking of it as, okay, these characters have this action going on, and we know that they're going to be fighting these two guys in this vault area. So we're just waiting for them we're trying to get them to avoid each other.
Right.
And then you see him fighting himself while he's got the mask on in that room, and he gets stopped by his Robert Pattinson duo, the protagonist does, and you're like, holy shit, the protagonist was fighting himself. What? And like, that's the guy who snuck out. Like, it's a good thing he was able to get out, because otherwise, not good.
I like how they use a comatose woman to go back into the building. I thought that was pretty funny. I'm like, are you just using her to get into the...
So I'm going to tell you something about that storyline with Kat that I was really... In the middle of it, I was real pissed off at Nolan.
I was very tired. The whole beaten housewife.
It was so tired. Yeah. The beaten woman. Like, I still don't think it was necessary. However, when we finally got to the end where...
She turns the tables.
And all along the tables were turned. if you think about like
The
then
woman.
going forward, all of the tables have been turned.
Yeah, the woman jumping off the ship, and it's actually
Being
her.
her,
Yeah.
and that she killed him, and that's why he disappeared.
Yep.
But then going back far enough to like prevent him from being able to access the formula prevents all of the other stuff.
Right.
That was like, okay, I can at least handle that. But I was so mad because I was like, there is just zero reason to have the woman be continuously beaten, battered, and like show the weak woman perspective thing where he's like, you're not gonna shoot me, you don't have it in you, and she cries, and he takes the gun and beats the shit out of her.
Just
like,
very tired.
we don't need to see that. And I still think that it wasn't entirely necessary, but I at least appreciate that he had a different outcome for it.
Yeah, I mean, he took a tired concept and made it work, but I'll be honest, I mean, that was the weakest part of the whole movie for me. Like, whenever you have an agent and you have a cool concept like this, I just don't want, I'm doing it to save this woman. Like, the fate of the world is in your hands and you're going to blow it for one person. I just always have a hard time with that kind of plot point. It bugs the shit out of me. It's
That's how I felt about Wonder Woman.
Because well, I don't agree with you on Wonder Woman. But I'll be honest. I mean, if I'm the protagonist, I let her die if it's going to save the world. I'm sorry.
Right.
I just do. And it's not even something that I would bat an eye on because that's your freaking job. Your job is to save everybody, not just her. I'm sorry. Her predicament is awful. And it is awful. And I did I liked how he used the kid against her. Like that was okay. All right. But turning the tables was pretty good. And Kenneth Branagh was a great bad guy. I think he was very good bad guy. He was. But there were moments where I'm like, I've seen this character in 47 other movies and I didn't like him in those either. So I didn't like that element, that whole beaten housewife syndrome. I just feel like we should be past that. But it still ultimately worked. I more disliked that he's going to risk everyone in the world's life to save her.
Yeah, I did. So I thought it was really cool where he basically told the woman, and I had no idea what her name was, but it was like the Indian woman who was head of everything, the whole project. And he basically tells her, like, I'm coming back for you.
Priya.
And sure enough, he does.
Yeah.
So cool. And it was at the perfect moment because I was wondering when that cell phone was going to come back into play. Like, it's obviously going to be used. It's just a matter of when will be the critical moment. And to have the two connected together, I thought was brilliant. I loved it.
So I want to ask, a lot of times when you're talking about a Christopher Nolan movie, you have at least one moment in the movie that because of the grandeur, because of the cinematics, it stands out. I mean, you go in Inception, the revolving hallway is a great scene. You go to the Dark Knight and it's the Joker out there on the street where he flips the Batmobile. I can name a bunch of scenes, at least one scene in every movie where you walk out of the theater going, that is iconic. Is there anything here that you felt was iconic?
The scene that comes to mind the most is when they are rushing the woman into their inverted time and they're on where the helicopter's at and they're rushing back inside and they see that their former selves were fighting themselves, that they're now fighting the past them. And all that time, it was not other people they were fighting, it was themselves. That, to me, felt like the most iconic and revealing moment.
Okay. Mine would probably be where he comes back and we learn that he's both of the people that they were fighting. I thought that was the iconic moment for me. I'm like, okay, all right, that's something I'll remember from this movie. Every time I see it, or whenever I watch it, that'll be something that comes to mind immediately. Mm-hmm. So what about the action scenes for you with time travel, the daring do, like everything here? Do you feel like this is a typical Christopher Nolan? Like, do you feel like the action scenes were cinematic, deserved to be seen in a theater, blah, 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 etc.? Like they were kick-ass? Definitely. I mean, this is the Christopher Nolan movie with steroids because he has a steroids budget. Mm-hmm. So he's able to put a little kung pao into his scenes because we've talked about this either in our spoiler-free or earlier in the spoiler portion of the cast, that this is
a Nolan concept, and it's simplistic in a way, because once you get to the end, you're like, oh, okay, so really it is what it is. And people are who they are. Simple notion. But when you combine that with the boom that he had, and the action scenes and the effects and the music, I mean, everything was just it was so elevated. And there were so many moments where I was literally gripping like, whoo, okay, that put me on edge. It was tense. It was, invigorating, and I kept going, and my heart was pumping, and I was just encapsulated. I feel like this is something you have to see on screen. I would not have wanted to watch this for my first experience of it at home. I'm happy to see it again at home, but I want to see it 2 or 3 times in theaters.
Oh, definitely. I the only thing I will say, I mean, positive, negative, I'm trying to be fair. Like, the action scenes were great, except I will say the very end where you have, their battle trying to get the pieces, and then you have her cat going against her husband. I found the cat versus husband far more riveting than I did we're just going to attack a building scene. Like, I just felt like that got a little bland there for a little bit. It finally got a little better.
The
but
war zone, you mean?
Yeah.
Like that portion?
Yeah, that scene just felt a little bland. Like, I just felt like I've seen this 100 times. There's nothing new
Also,
here.
I did not follow that man's directions well enough, because I was confused. He gave all those directions for the military red and blue, and I was like, we got into it, and I was like, I forgot. Who's doing what now?
Yeah.
What's the directions again?
What's going on? Robert Pattinson's character's dead? What? What is going on? What?
I mean, there were great reveals in it, yes, but I agree with you. That moment with her husband, because we've connected with this character now, and we want her to get out of this horrible situation. And it's a trope because it's used and because it works. But we don't want her to be in this situation.
But I don't want him to save her. I want her to save herself, which is what she did.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And when you see that phone call, though, where he makes that phone call, and it's like, oh no, nothing's changing. He knows, like, things have already been done. And then she's like, screw it, I'm gonna kill you. And I was like, oh yeah, go girl. And then on the other hand, I was like, oh, but the whole universe, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a very, very selfish action. But I mean, hey, that just proves she wasn't worth saving. Protagonist guy. Like, she's a selfish person, but she's also in a horrible plight and she's damaged. I get all that, but it was a great moment. And one thing I thought was really like a cool play with audience expectations is when he got the phone call, I think everybody assumed that he was being told that she was on the boat, but which he kind of was, but you felt like that was going to completely turn everything. But all it did was it planted a seed for his realization at some point, which he didn't come to that conclusion. He's like, oh, I don't know why. I guess I didn't give you credit for being smart enough to work this time angle, which is really what ultimately was his downfall. The score, I want to mention the score again because it's a character by itself. We have a different composer to this. That's not Hans Zimmer. It's Ludwig Göransson, who did Black Panther. He's done other scores. But do you feel like his score measured up to the typical Christopher Nolan film?
It felt like a Nolan film. I mean, there were moments where I was so invested with the music subconsciously that I was more invested in that than I was, whatever they were talking about or anything like that, because it's just so compelling and it gets under your skin and into your mind, and it was beautiful. So no, I don't feel like this was much different. It met my expectation. Quite honestly, if you wouldn't have told me that, I would have just been like, oh, it's just done a little bit differently. Still worked great.
And I got to ask you, in terms of the film itself, do you think Christopher Nolan just saved cinema? Or this movie has the potential to save cinema?
Yes, people are going to want to go see this. People are going to enjoy themselves. It's going to get people back to the theater multiple times. It's going to get the triple cost when people want to go see Dolby or IMAX or whatever it is. It's worth it. And I want to point out one of the things that if you've been on social media, you've obviously seen me posting about this in our group and stuff, but one of the most amazing things that I thought came out of this film was the way that the cinematographer, which I'm going to try not to slaughter his name, Hoyte van Hoytema, Well,
I think you failed, but...
Hey, I Googled it. I listened.
Okay.
Hoyte van Hoytema.
Okay.
Or something.
I like it.
The way that traditionally lighting for filmmaking has been taught has been obviously for white individuals. And so the contrast is much different when you have somebody with darker skin tones, of course. But it's not traditionally taught how to handle those actors and make sure that you can have the cinematic background that you want with the proper lighting on your actor. And there's a moment when they're in the restaurant, and this is the moment that is perfect in my mind, and he's sitting there talking to Michael Caine. And behind him is this beautiful brown, they're in a really, really elegant restaurant, and it's a color that resembles closely to his skin tone, to John David Washington's skin tone. And in a lot of cases, they probably would have changed the background, or they would put a tremendous amount of light on his face to try to lighten his skin tone up and make it appear more. But instead, they were just simple and just understanding enough of their actor and their scene and everything that they had around them to do appropriate lighting on him, which made his skin look beautiful and still the same natural tone, did not change it, and just blurred the background and created this perfect... I mean, I don't know the technicality of it, but the lighting was just perfect for it. And Michael Caine did not have that blurred background, and it was normal for him, and that was an appropriate lighting for him and an appropriate background. And I was just really pleased to see that they were taking that into account and were doing it appropriately.
So this is like film class 101 for you?
No, because I'm not even giving you like technicalities because I don't know them. But it was just something that it was so subtle, but I thought was just something that is a beautiful thing to notice.
You know what I noticed is that Michael Caine was in this movie for like 30 seconds.
Dude, what movie does he not show up in Christopher Nolan?
Well, I think it's required. I mean, he's legally required to be in all Christopher Nolan movies. I think it's part of his contract.
His life contract. He's like, do you want to continue living, sir? Because I have some crazy like time reversal methods here. I need you to sign this contract.
Well, you know, they do allude to, I guess I should answer the question. Save cinema. I think, you know, to really bring people back to theaters, you need a movie that people are going to talk about. And I truly believe that is a big reason why Christopher Nolan was holding off, because he knows he has a movie where people are going to be confused and are going to have questions. They're going to talk to their friends because that's the kind of movie it is. We see different things. And, you know, this has a very similar aspect as Inception and even Gone Girl. And in some respects is because you can create your own fan fiction when you walk out, because you've got the protagonist and, you know, Neil, Robert Pattinson's character, they have a history. They have a relationship for years, obviously. So you can put those things in your head, like write your own fan fiction about what adventures they get on. Think about maybe there's a sequel. I don't know. I mean, there's potential for a sequel. So
there definitely is. I mean, there was his story progressed further than we knew of by the end.
Absolutely. So yes, I do think, I mean, this is a movie that when I walked out, if you're still listening to this and you haven't seen it, I don't understand, but good for you. It's still a movie you have to see in a theater. And I don't care how frickin' fancy your home TV is, it will not compare. It does not compare to seeing this in a, I mean, I couldn't even imagine.
Nothing compares
to the theaters. Watching this, like, don't get me wrong, like Bill and Ted Face the Music doesn't feel like I have to see that in a theater. I just thought it would be a fun thing to see with friends. But this is a movie where the music, the lighting, the cinematography, the shots, the beauty of the action scenes, like the grand spectacle is cinematic. Everything about it is made for a movie theater, and it works better in a movie theater. And you'll walk out of there and you'll tell your friends that you went with, you'll talk about trying to figure out some stuff neither one of you figured out. You're still going to be trying to figure like, what is going on with this time shit? I don't understand.
Googling Tenet timeline.
Yeah. How did they go back years? I don't understand. And then he's still dead at the, what the fuck? He's dead in the same place. I don't understand. Like, all of these things are going to get you talking and talking and talking. And that's what can save cinema. Movies like that can save cinema.
And have safe cinema.
Woo!
Hopefully.
Thank you, Nolan. Thank you. All right. That's going to do it for this episode. Unless you have anything further to say about Tenet.
Go see it.
Bam. Remember, guys, next time you go to a theater, I already said it, but I'm going to say it again. Go see Tenet in a theater. Be safe. All that, as long as you feel comfortable, which I will tell you, we've all had plenty of experiences. We're all fine. Buy popcorn.
I have to ask you a question, though.
Oh, okay. Don't buy popcorn.
Wait
yet.
to buy popcorn. Just a few seconds. Did you have a theater that stuck around after the ending while the credits were rolling to see if there was anything left?
Not for that one. I did for New Mutants, and I felt like I wasted my time, but I didn't for this one.
I wasted my time here, too, but there were a lot of people who were kind of hanging out, waiting, and I was like, oh, this is the beauty of watching it at the movie theater with other people, where they're sitting around anticipating seeing more. And that's always a good sign to me.
Absolutely. You know what would have been really cool is to throw in some more time fuckery there at the end, Nolan. I mean, you had...
You had the opportunity.
You had the opportunity. What a great stinger where it's like, they're actually, none of this happened yet. Wait, what?
This was all in Cobb's dream from Inception.
Oh, man. It's like after the credits, like the top spinning? Yes! Why not? I'm gonna freaking superimpose that on my Blu-ray whenever I buy it. I'm going to get that in there. Bam. All right, guys, take care. We're out.